How's it going, everyone? Yosef back here with another video, and I hope you're having an amazing week so far. Today we get the pleasure of taking a look at this 2023 Range Rover Velar P340 R Dynamic. And for those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Yosef. I've got 3 kids, I happen to be a car enthusiast, and I used to sell cars in the past. So if you're interested in my perspective, please consider subscribing. Now on with the video. All right, to kick things off, I wanted to tell you a little bit of a story because this car reminds me of cosmetic surgery. Now, before you think I'm totally crazy here, hear me out, because back in the day, these Range Rovers and Land Rovers, they were designed to be very capable, mature, off-roading vehicles. Things that you could use every day, but had incredible abilities to do amazing things. And they were very boxy, and they were really good looking, but in a rugged, sort of mature sort of way. But now, Range Rover has changed their design language. They have this sleek, beautiful body, and it kind of looks like it had Botox. You take the old Range Rovers and you do all this great cosmetic surgery and you get this sleek, very chic, beautiful looking car. And it's so beautiful, in fact, that back in 2018, it won the world's most beautiful car award at the New York Auto Show. That says a lot. But the question is, just like with cosmetic surgery, is that beauty only skin deep, or is it something that is perpetuated throughout the vehicle? Well, today we're gonna find out. Are you ready? Let's go. So to start things off, I just wanted to say this car is sort of the middle trim for the Range Rover Velar. There's a cheaper version with a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that's turbocharged. This is the 3-liter V6 with the turbo. Again, makes about 335 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque. And there's another one that's a little bit higher up. So if you wanted to get a little more power, there's a 400 horsepower version, the P340. But this is sort of the sweet spot. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the styling of the car because the Velar, in my opinion, is one of the most beautiful Range Rovers that are out here. And there are a few things that they've done to it to make it so special. Number one, you'll notice it's a very, very clean side profile. There aren't a lot of cuts and grooves and shapes and curves and things like that. It's very, very simple, but you've got some very nice designs. It's curved up over here and you've got this really nice character line that goes all across the length of the car. And that to me is so distinctive and it's so beautiful. It really, really does look like, you know, again, like you're wearing a nice suit that just fits so well and you've got that little crease going there. There are a few little nice design details here that they are a little plasticky, but it just fits with the overall look of the car. Even the door handles, they've set recessed into the body so that it's very smooth, and you press it to unlock and they just get presented to you, which to me is very cool. And you don't have to worry about those scratch marks behind the door handle because it's plastic back there. It's not body colored. And when it's locked, you just press that button and it goes away. And again, it just looks very clean. And taking a look at the front of the car, so many automakers, they have all these crazy design features here. And the Range Rover Velar is just so simple looking. You've got a very tasteful grille that's closed right now, but when you're driving and it needs some air, it opens up behind. You've got some really beautiful flush headlights, but there's still a lot of detail and dimension in them. And the daytime running lights are very distinctive and they look so cool at night. You even have these really cool design features over here that unfortunately aren't functional, but they look really cool and they add to the design of the car. And overall, I think they've done a great job. It's got a very nice presence to it. When you see it coming in your rearview mirror, it looks very cool. But again, it's not too much in your face. It's very sleek. It's very sexy. And I love that about this car. If we make our way over to the side of the car, you'll notice again, there isn't a whole lot going on with the wheel design. Very, very simple. These are on some winter tires. And I do happen to like the little details up here. It would be nice if these were functional hood vents instead of plastic. But it is nice that they have the Range Rover script up there. And the other thing that I thought would be interesting to share is, I talked about this in some of the other SUVs that we reviewed, you've got the door panels going all the way down so that when you open and close the doors, you don't have your legs brushing up on the dirty part of the side sill. It's all covered by the door panel, and that's a nice little luxury touch that I wish more cars had. And if you take a look at overall the proportions of the car, you can tell this is a capable off-road car, even though it's really beautiful, because you've got very short sort of front overhangs and the back is really steeply raked up, and you've got this really beautiful two-tone paint job that I absolutely love. It looks so rich and special when you've got the black at the top, you've got the sort of gray in the middle and the black on the bottom. It just helps the car look really cool and sleek, and to me that is a really beautiful touch. And you don't have any chrome around here, it's all blacked out. Again, very, very nice. We're going to take a look at the back because I think there's some really cool features about the back as well, and then we'll dive inside. Now, looking at the back of the Range Rover Velar, yes, very standard, nothing too exciting, but if you start taking a look at the details, you'll notice you've got these beautiful taillights in here and this black piece of plastic that sort of wraps all the way around. That character line that we took a look at before sort of comes right into the taillights, and you've got a really nice sort of lower portion over here with real exhausts, even though the surrounds are fake. You've got a tow hitch over here and everything looks really, really nice. But one of the really great touches here is you've got the windshield wiper tucked in under the spoiler. So many cars have the windshield wiper sort of just stuck on over there, and I feel like that's so ugly and it really ruins the look of the car. Tucking it under there is absolutely where it should be, and it cleans up the look of the back, and I think it looks really cool. All right, let's go inside. So to get into the Velar, all we have to do, as long as you have the key fob in your hand or in your pocket, is just press this button, and again, the door handles were out. And I just wanted to say before we get in, the key fob is really, really nice. I don't usually talk about the key fobs. I know it just seems like a very simple, basic key fob, but there's a lot of weight to it. It feels really special in the hand, even though it's sort of just a basic plastic key fob, but I really like how heavy it feels. It just feels substantial. So having said that, let's jump into the interior and talk a little bit more about it. Getting into the Velar, you'll notice you've got a really nice door card. You've got so many different textures and types of materials here, and that's something that really is beautiful with this car. It's not just a really nice sleek exterior. They've done a lot of tasteful details for the interior of the car. Everything is soft touch, and I apologize, it's a little dirty. It's winter here in Toronto, Canada, so everything gets dirty very quickly, but you've got these really nice big door pulls that are metal. You've got all of your buttons over here, the switch gear for, again, opening and closing the windows and your mirrors and your seat memory and all of that stuff here. Really nice that it's there, and they're also lit up at night, which is very cool. You've got this nice metallic piece over here. It feels really nice. It's a nice piece of aluminum instead of some cheap black plastic or something like that. Everything is soft touch up here. You've got some beautiful stitching, and you've got a Meridian sound system. Although I do wish they had a metal grate over here instead of a cheap black plastic, but other than that, the door card is really nice. I love the texture in this piece over here, and that sort of continues on the interior of the car. And if we take a look down, even though it's a little dirty, you see this beautiful door sill that says R Dynamic on it, just to remind you, you're in the special one. You're not in the cheap base model. Even the pedals, even though they're very dirty, are metal with rubber, and they look really nice. And the seats are absolutely beautiful. You've got a nice set of stitching over here on the headrest, very soft touch leather. You've got the perforation over here, and you've got little bits of Alcantara or that suede material all peppered out throughout the interior of the car and the seats. And I really like that. It just hugs you in. They're nicely bolstered, but not too much. And if you take a look at the leather and the stitching over here, it's really nice and exciting looking. And the seats are very plush. It's like sitting on a couch. Very, very comfortable. Big contrast to the CX-50 hybrid that we drove a few weeks ago. I wish they were as comfortable as this, but that's okay. You also have all of your seat controls down here. Really nice that we don't have to go into a menu. And you've got four-way adjustable lumbar support, which is great. The only thing we're missing is we don't have the extendable sort of leg support over here. But other than that, they've done a great job with the seats. Now that we're on the inside of the Velar, we can take a look at the steering wheel, and it is a very nice looking steering wheel. They've done a good job there. It's not too thick in terms of the diameter of the steering wheel, so most people will find it very comfortable. I like the fact that you've got some of these sort of slats in between over here, the buttons, and you've got this part open. It looks very cool. The only thing that's a bit interesting is these big sort of plastic sections are the buttons for all of the different menus and answering calls and volume and next track and all that kind of stuff. And it's sort of one big button. And it just feels a little cheap. When you press on it, it doesn't seem like a very sort of solid, nice clicking feeling. And that sort of tactile piece, I wish they would have spent a little bit more money on making feel a little bit better. Even the scroll wheel is kind of loose. It's not a very expensive feeling scroll wheel, but it is nice to have these buttons instead of just plain old touch buttons. I really like the fact that they'll light up when you turn the car on, so you get to see what they all are. But overall, the design is very nice. They could have done a little bit better there, but not terrible. You'll see over here also that you've got the continuation of that sort of diamond looking material that we've got here. It is sort of plush feeling material. I can't even explain what it is, but it kind of looks very nice. And I like the way they've integrated all of the air vents in the car. You've got the gloss black plastic around there, but it looks so nice in the design of sort of the minimalism up here. There isn't too much going on. They're very slim, and you can control them through these little dials instead of having to go through the infotainment system to figure out, you know, how to turn the HVAC system on, which I really, really like. Now, some of the controls for it are going to be in the screen. We'll talk about that in a moment, but the overall design is very nice. And I like the fact that we've got a big screen up here and then another one down below. And as I turn on the car, you'll get to see a little bit more about how that works. I did want to make one quick mention before we get into the details of the screen, and that is, you've got metal paddle shifters up here, which are very nice. You've got some nice details on the stalks, and they're damped really, really nicely. So they don't feel cheap. And that's something that I really like in this car. Some cars, you get into luxury cars and they just feel so cheap when you turn that on. In this car, that's not the case. Now, taking a look at the infotainment screen, it's very cool because when you turn the car on, it actually comes out of sort of the dashboard. It's presented to you. And there are different settings in there. You can bring it forwards and back depending on the angle that you want it. It's very nice. And the black levels and the resolution are only okay. I wouldn't say that they're tremendously great. The one knock is it's a bit laggy. It's not as responsive as I would have expected, although you've got a lot of customizability in here. If you wanted to change what you have on sort of the home display, you can do that. That's very nice. And you've got the different apps, and it is relatively intuitive to get to. You've got wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is kind of cool. And I like the fact that you also have a dedicated button over here for the camera system. So you can bring that up. You don't have a 360 camera, which is kind of unfortunate in a car like this, but you do have the back view, and there's a few different options for that. If you want to tow something, you can see directly below where the tow hitch is. Other than that, nothing too impressive here. The camera resolution is not great, but it's okay. Now, all the other major stuff that you're going to be playing around with is down here on the lower screen. Your different drive modes, your climate controls, your hill descent, all of the other sort of main controls for the vehicle are down here. And you've got these rotary dials to change the temperature, which look really cool. They do feel a little bit cheap, but they've got these rubberized sort of material around it, so it does feel a little bit grippy. And the cool thing is, if you want to change between the temperature and the heated seats, then you can just press in on this dial and it allows you to switch between the different settings. We don't have cooled seats here, which is unfortunate. That's a big miss, but you do have the 3 stages of heated seats, which is very nice. So overall, the design is really cool. I like that you've got some dedicated buttons. You've got a dedicated volume knob here. So the integration of this actually is pretty good, and it's easy to get to, so you don't have to go and find it in a whole bunch of different menus. And then you've got the top screen that just shows your profile and what you're listening to and some of the other navigation settings and things like that. But otherwise, very cool to have the dual screen setup. And if we take a look at the gauge cluster, and I'll just zoom in, you've got a nice screen in here as well. The black levels are not amazing and it's nothing to write home about, but it is very configurable. The only downside about this is, again, it's a little laggy. It takes time from when you press the button to when things actually change in the menu, and it's not so intuitive to change the different settings in here. You have all these different settings for the display over here. You can change the layout if you wanted and have 2 dials versus 1 dial, or a full map if you wanted, which is kind of neat. I always like it when the gauge clusters are fully configurable. I think that's what makes it so interesting and exciting. Why should you have a full digital gauge cluster if you can't sort of utilize the space in there? So it is really nice that we have that, but again, it's a little slow and it's not so intuitive to get used to. But other than that, really nice job. We are missing a heads-up display. It is an option in this car, but unfortunately we don't have it ticked. Other than that though, it is very easy to use everything in here. Now, taking a look at the center console area, again, I apologize for the fingerprints and everything. It was detailed and everything shows up very easily over here. You've got a sort of chunky shift lever over here, which is kind of cool. It helps with the ethos of this being an off-road car, but the luxury touches are very nice. It is gloss black plastic, which looks very nice when it's brand new, and after a week or so it does get a little used looking, but they've done some cool things here. I like that we have the shift lever and you've got a parking button over there. You've got this metallic piece right in the center with the Land Rover logo, and if you press on that, it reveals you've got another cup holder, which is very cool. So when you don't want it, you can hide it away. But if you want it open, of course, you've got an extra cup holder there, and you've got the other 2 over here, which is very nice. And just behind the screen, you've got a little bit of storage back there. And I believe there's an option to turn this into a wireless charger. In this particular vehicle, we don't have it, but it's nice to just store your phone there, keep things out of the way so you don't have to worry about them. And overall, they've done a very nice job with the storage back here. You've got big door bins. They are felt lined on one side, and you also have, even with the seat belts, a little piece of felt going around there. So you've got some of those nice luxury touches. And I was really impressed getting in this car. Everything feels pretty solid. There's not a lot of creaking or movement of things. Everything's built pretty well. Some of the older Range Rovers that I've had in the past or taken a look at, it felt a little cheap, but here everything is pretty good except for this part over here. It does sort of creak and move around a little bit, but other than that, it looks really beautiful. You've got a very nice panoramic sunroof that opens up, and you've got a sunshade and the buttons for the sunroof that are physical, which I really like, so they're not going to go wrong. And you've got these touch buttons up here for the dome lights, which is a very nice touch too. The one thing that's kind of a miss is we don't have our sunglass holder. I don't know why they couldn't put it in here. That's unfortunate, but oh well, what can you do? I do really like that we've got a rimless mirror up here, and you've got the home link settings down at the bottom. So really nice and easy to use. Overall, they've done a great job with the interior, and it feels very luxurious in here. You don't see like much that you would take a look and say, wow, they've really cheapened out or cost cut it here. Overall, it feels very nice. And I have to say, the material they've used up here for the headliner is really, really soft. Most of the time it's got a little more texture to it and it's a bit rougher, but this is super soft. It almost seems like they've used Egyptian cotton to weave the material over here. I don't know what it is, but I really like it, and it feels very luxurious and very premium. All right, now moving into the back of the Velar, we open the door, and I have to say, these are very chunky doors. They feel substantial and heavy, which is very nice. That's a nice luxury touch. We've got the same nice materials back here. Again, this diamond sort of stitched material looks very, very cool. And again, you've got the same nice soft touch materials back here and that beautiful piece of aluminum, which looks great. And you're still got that felt material in here, which is very nice. You don't have the door sills, which is unfortunate, so they cheapened out a little bit over there. But other than that, you look at the back seat area and you've got the same beautiful leather for the back seats here, and the stitching and the perforation and the Alcantara. Everything looks really, really nice. So special for a car like this. They really didn't cheapen out, and really easy to get to those ISOFIX points. So if you want to put car seats back here, you can do that. And it feels very spacious. And I'll show you that in a second. I've got my buddy Mo here. He's going to sit down and you can see how that looks with a 6-foot person sitting back here. I did want to mention before I get there just the fact that you've got your own sort of climate vents, but there are no climate controls back here. And in a car that costs around $78,000 Canadian, I would have expected to see climate controls back here, your own separate ones. And you don't even have charge ports back here, which is a bit of a miss. Yes, you've got one over here, cigarette style, but other than that, there's no USB-C or Type A ports there, which is unfortunate. But you do have a really nice sort of pouch back here, and I like the way that the seats are carved out, so you've got a little bit more leg room. You've got also this really nice feature that came with this particular option. With this particular car, it was optioned in. You've got a hanger for your jacket, so when you go into business meetings, you can do that, and you've got another hook back there, but otherwise, it looks very, very nice and spacious. So I've got my buddy Mo sitting in here now. Mo is over 6 feet tall, and I've got the seat in the driving position that I would like to use. I'm about 5'7", so I'm not the tallest guy in the world, but if you take a look, he's got a lot of legroom back here. It's really, really spacious, and there's a lot of room also for his feet beneath this front chair, so he's got a lot of room to play around there. Headroom is really good, even though we've got a giant panoramic sunroof. So overall, a very practical car and a great option if you're looking for an SUV that's not too large and not too small. And you also have a really nice armrest back here. We fold this down. Of course, it's nice and soft and plush, and you've got the cup holders back here. Nothing creative done with the cup holders. There also is no charge spots or any storage in here, which is unfortunate. But again, this whole section folds down, which is really nice. So you've got a nice little pass-through if you wanted to take skis or larger items in the car. All right, now moving into the tailgate of the Range Rover Velar. Again, everything is power operated. I haven't found the ability to wave your foot under there. That would have been really nice to have. But if we take a look at the back seat area and the cargo section, we've got a lot of room back here, and you've got that split folding sort of 40-40-20 system going on here for the rear seat. So if you wanted to have larger items back here, you can fold that down. There is an armrest there, and it makes it easier to have the seats up where you have your kids and the car seats and stuff like that, and you can fold that middle section down, which is great. You don't always get that in every car. I wish they all had them, but it's really nice that we have it here. We also don't have sort of a cargo cover, which is unfortunate. I would have expected a car like this to have it, but I guess the way that it's designed with that sleek body style, you don't really have to worry too much about people peering in. But other than that, not a lot to talk about back here. You've got some really nice metal tie downs, which is great. A little netting and a section back here. And you've got these little tiny hooks that pop out. So when you're doing the grocery run, your groceries won't sort of roam around in the back area. You've got that set up, which is very, very nice. And other than that, there isn't any way to fold the seats down from back here, which is unfortunate. Most sort of 5-seater SUVs have some sort of latch or something you can pull on to lower the seats down so you don't have to go all the way around. In this particular vehicle, we don't have it, which is unfortunate. But other than that, you take a look under here, you've got a proper spare tire, which is nice. So not a lot of storage under there, but otherwise it is nice to have a spare tire. And if we take a look back up here, you'll notice that you've got one button to close the trunk and a handle. There's no other button to lock and close the trunk. I did want to mention really quickly, you've got this little piece of vinyl or material that keeps things a little more private back here. It doesn't extend all the way out, but it is something, better than nothing. All right, let's go for our drive. So a few things that I want to talk about just right off the bat. Now, number one, again, it is a really beautiful car, and they've got a lot of really nice features. Everything feels very solid and very luxurious, and I didn't mention this before, but the windshield is actually heated. There are these little elements in the windshield so that in the winter when things are really cold like today, you can warm it up very easily and you don't have to worry about blasting air on the window. It's something that is a small touch, but it makes a world of a difference when it comes to, driving the car and keeping things warm. So that is a really cool thing. I wanted to also mention the car itself is very easy to get along with. There's a lot of luxury cars now that again are moving to all these touch sensitive things and everything in the screens and stuff like that. I think Range Rover, Land Rover, they've done such a nice job at just keeping things simple, but very, very classy. Everything looks very nice and it looks expensive, and you touch things and they feel very expensive for the most part. So, that cosmetic surgery that I was talking about at the beginning, joking around about it a little bit, it's not just skin deep. They've done a really nice job with this car. And it's perfect because it's not too big and not too small. It just fits in between the Range Rover Evoque and the sort of larger Range Rover Sport. So it's kind of the perfect Goldilocks car if you're looking just for a 5-seater version of a Range Rover. And driving the car, it's very, very quiet. The seats are super comfortable. You've got double glazed glass. You've got really, really nice sound insulation in here, so you don't hear very much. And the pillars themselves are actually shaped and sculpted in a very nice way, so they're not intruding too much, but they're still relatively thick, but it doesn't hamper visibility too much. And the visibility is okay in this car. I wouldn't say it's great. You've got pretty thick door pillars and things like that, but again, it's a very easy car to get along with. Now, I will say this car is definitely more on the luxury side than any sporty sort of feel to it. Everything is very soft. The suspension is really nice and sort of floaty. And even when it comes to sort of just the driving dynamics, you're not going to get much in terms of a sporty feel. The steering is very light. Even in the dynamic mode, nothing really stiffens up too much. You don't feel like you're being bounced around or in a very performance-oriented car. There is one thing that I noticed that's kind of interesting. The brake feel is very, very soft. I don't know if that's supposed to be a very luxurious sort of feeling to the brake pedal or not, but I find it to be a little too soft for my liking. It's not as progressive as I would have expected or wanted from a car for my taste. And the same thing goes with the throttle response. It's pretty punchy when you're in the dynamic mode, and it picks up very quickly. This is a mild hybrid, so it's got a little bit of that electric performance too, and it's, again, quiet when it stops. But when you put your foot on the gas pedal and you just press it a little bit in the dynamic mode, it shifts very quickly, but it also gives you a very quick surge of power, and it's not as luxurious in terms of the way that it comes on as you might expect. So that's one thing that's going to be a little difficult for most people to drive this car. It's something you have to get used to, and it's not going to be as easy to drive smoothly as you might expect. But other than that, again, it's very easy to drive. It's very comfortable. It's super quiet. The steering is very easy to use. It's not very heavy. I will say that there isn't much feedback coming from the steering wheel, so it's not a very responsive one, but it is very good in terms of its turning radius. It feels like a much smaller car than it actually is, so that is a very cool thing too. One thing that I noticed also with the driving position, I'm sitting with my chair sort of where I would want it to be relative to the pedals. The steering wheel doesn't come out as much as I would have hoped, but it's not always perfect in every car. I do like the fact that we've got these metal paddle shifters. Doesn't really do much for me because it's not a very performance-oriented car. It's got an 8-speed automatic transmission, so you've got a lot of gears to sift through. And sometimes when you're driving, I feel like the car is hunting a little bit and trying to figure out what gear it wants to be in because it's got so many to choose from. But other than that, it is a relatively quiet, refined drive. You don't feel the sort of hybrid system kicking in intrusively. You do feel it when it stops and starts, but other than that, it's not too bad. And for a car like this, I think they've done a relatively good job. I think the biggest part about it is this is a very capable car to use off-road. It's a very capable car to use every day. It's got a lot of practicality. You've got a lot of room in here. It's very comfortable. It's absolutely beautiful to look at. It's got presence, and it gives you sort of that status. When you drive around in a Range Rover, people look at you differently. It's like driving a Mercedes or an Audi or BMW. It's a very nice brand. It's associated with status, and I think that's why most people really like it. And they've got some great design features in here that just make it feel very, very special. And I think that's really what this car is designed for. I know it's got so much off-road capability. It's got all these different drive modes for being off-road, and it's got hill descent control and all the other good stuff that you would want to have in an off-road vehicle. Great departure and approach angles and stuff like that. But let's be real, most of the people who buy this car are not going to be taking it off-road. This is going to see way more city driving and going to malls and spas and things like that than going off-road. But it's like having a really nice sports car with a lot of power. You know that it can do it, and if you wanted to, you absolutely could. But for the most part, people are going to drive this as a nice family vehicle, and for that, I think they've done a really great job. The target audience for this car, I think, are people who want something a little bit different from the traditional German cars. They want something, that's a little more interesting looking or British. And for that, I think they've done a really nice job. It's a luxurious car. It definitely suits its price tag at $78,000, somewhere around there when it was brand new. And, you know, again, if you really wanted to, you can go down to a cheaper model for $67,000. It's not too bad to get a base model Velar that, again, won a beauty award in 2018 and, you know, has a fair amount of power. 340 horsepower is not going to be anything to write home about, but, you know, you put your foot down and it's more than enough for what most people need. It's good to get you, you know, where you want to be going on the highway to pass people. And with the 8-speed transmission, it does a pretty good job of putting you in the power band when you need it. But again, this car is about cruising along and being comfortable and not having a lot of intrusive noises coming from the outside. And you've got a lot of really great features in here too. I love the way they've integrated the infotainment system with the climate controls and having a separate screen there. I think they've done a really nice job with that. What do I think about this car? Is it worth it? Absolutely. Would I take this over a Mercedes GLC or, I don't know, a Volvo XC60 or a BMW X3? I think I would. If I was looking for the ultimate sort of luxury feeling car, absolutely. And if you want to take it on a weekend holiday and do some off-roading, you can do that too, which is kind of nice. So well done, Range Rover, for this. It is a very nice addition to the lineup and they've done a great job. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video. I really appreciate it. I hope you found it helpful. And again, if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you enjoy this type of content. And if you do, please consider subscribing. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.